Hi, this is Keith Young. In this tutorial, we're going to create a flyer advertising a classy dance affair. I'm going to show you how to turn this photo inside of Photoshop into this flyer. So let's get started. In order to get started, you should gather all of the materials needed for the project, such as photos, illustrations, and the information that you need to incorporate into the file. So we have our photo, and I also have a flyer information document that I created in a text program. In this case, it's a fictional client, but as you can see, we have all of the pertinent information down and listed, such as who, what, when, the time, where it's going to be, any additional info that needs to be placed on the flyer, and the call to action. The call to action is very important because you need to put something on the flyer for your prospective viewer to do once they're done reading your flyer. Do you want them to call a number? Do you want them to make a purchase? Something to that effect needs to be on your flyer as well. Okay, so now that we have gathered all of our information, we're ready to get started. So we're going to go over to Photoshop and create a new document. Our flyer design is completely square, and the dimensions are 4.5 by 4.5. Make sure that the units are set to inches. Set your resolution to 300 and set your color mode to RGB color. RGB is the default color mode of Photoshop and the one we're going to work in. Working in RGB lets us use all of Photoshop's color adjustment features and filters, which are not always available in some of the other color modes. We are going to convert this to CMYK when we're done creating our flyer so that it will print properly. If we don't, when you send this file to the printer, they're going to have to convert it before it goes to press, and this may cause some unpleasant color shifts as well as a printer that's not too happy with you. So let's go ahead and click OK. And now we are ready to add some margins to our flyer. Now Photoshop is not like a page layout program where you can set margins, but there is a way to create margins inside of Photoshop so that you know where to place your content. So make sure that your rulers are on, like mine are. If yours are not on, what you need to do is go to the View menu and choose the Rulers command, and that will turn them on, or you can hit Command R on your keyboard. And I just turned them off, so I'm going to hit Command R to turn them back on. And now if you hover your mouse over one of these rulers and click and drag, you will create a ruler guide. We're going to use these ruler guides to approximate margins inside of Photoshop. So as you can see, I'm dragging them out to about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. 1/4 of an inch will ensure that none of our important graphics or text gets cut off when this printer or when this flyer goes to the printer. You always need to check with your service provider to ensure that you have the right dimensions or the right margin set so that your documents don't get cut off. Every printer is a little bit different. Some require 1/8 of an inch, some require 1/4 of an inch. 1/4 of an inch is pretty standard, so that's what we're going to use for this project. Now we're ready to add our image to our document. So what I'm going to do is move my flyer document over, bring my image of the flowers to the foreground, select the Move tool in the toolbar, and simply click and drag my flower image over to my new flyer document. Now these petals are facing the wrong way. I want them to be faced in the opposite direction. So what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. And now the petals are facing in the direction that I want them to go. By using the Move tool, I'm just going to click and drag my image so that it's placed like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to create a pixel stretch effect. And I'm going to refer back to our old flyer so that you can see what I'm talking about. Over here, you see how these pixels appear to be stretched out? That's just a design element that I saw on the internet. I thought it was pretty cool, and we're going to use it for our design, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So what you need to do is select the single column marquee tool inside or on the toolbar. You need to zoom in really close to the edge of the flyer document. I'm zooming in by hitting Command and then the plus key on the keyboard. And now with the single column marquee, I'm just going to select this last column right here of color on our image. And now I can zoom back out by hitting Command and minus on the keyboard. I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform, and then Scale. And now I'm just going to pull and drag this right on over. Now you can see I'm kind of on the edge. I want to make sure that I get all the way off the edge, so I'm just going to add a little bit more by dragging this window further. And I'm going to click and drag that a little bit further off the edge there. And then I'm going to click the check mark in the tool options bar to accept those changes. Hit Command D on the keyboard to deselect, and there we have it. That's our pixel stretch effect. Try this on some of your other images, and I'm sure you'll see that you get lots of interesting color effects that you can use in your different designs. Okay? So now we're going to create an area for our headline. So I'm going to select the rectangular shape tool. In the tool options bar, make sure that you have shape layer selected, and then we're going to choose a nice red color. So I'm going to click on this foreground color, and I'm going to change the values for RGB. So R is going to be 213, and G is I'm going to set it to 38. And B, I'm going to set to 0. RGB is short for red, green, and blue. Now I want to draw your attention to something for a moment. If you've ever noticed this square here with this alert box on top of it, what that means is that the color that we've chosen is out of the print gamut for the CMYK color space. Basically what that means is that this color will be impossible to print using CMYK color inks. So what Photoshop does is it lets you know that, or it alerts you to that fact, and if you click on this button, this will select the next closest color that will actually print out accurately by using CMYK. So I'm just going to click this button here, and you see that in the color wheel it jumped our selection jumped over a little bit, and now we have a red color that can actually be reproduced by using CMYK colored inks. Okay, so that's just a little tip about color gamut and what that alert box was actually for. If you ever see that in your work while you're in your work is destined to get printed, you may want to change your color or click on that box so you can get the most accurate color reproduction when you print your files. Okay, so now I'm ready to add my shape layer, so I'm just going to click and drag out my shape like so. I previously added a layer effect to my panel, so I'm going to show you what I did. All you need to do is click on the effects panel for that shape layer, and what I did was added a stroke. I set the color to white, and I set the size to 4, and then I clicked OK. That we accepted those changes. Now we're all set up to start adding the type to our flyer document. So what I'm going to do is click on the who. This information here is going to be first. I'm going to hit Command C to copy. I'm going to come back inside of Photoshop, choose my horizontal type tool, and I'm just going to click and paste that in. I'm going to select that type, open up the character panel, and what we're going to do is reset our options. reset the character, change the color to white, and I want to change this font that I have here to Helvetica New. The reason I'm using Helvetica New is because, as you can see here, there are a lot of different font weights that are available for this font. So this allows us to have some nice typographic variation without having to use lots of different fonts. It's always good for your designs to try and pick a font that has this type of variation in it, so that you can have some elements be bold and some metallic and some light without having to switch between fonts. A lot of times new designers try to use lots of different fonts trying to emphasize different information, and you really only need 2 to 3 fonts maximum for each design. Now once you learn a little bit more about typography, feel free to experiment, but for now kind of stick to the rule of using only 2 or 3 at the most fonts in your designs, and that'll kind of help keep your design looking consistent. Okay, so we're going to edit this a little bit more. We're going to change this to bold. We're going to shrink the size down, and what I want to do is change this to all caps. You can see we have upper and lower case. Now how am I going to do that inside of Photoshop without actually retyping that? Well, in the character panel there's an option, if you click it here, to change your type to all caps. And the great thing about this is you can simply click the button again and it will change your text back. That's not a permanent change. So that's a really quick way to turn on all caps for your type inside of Photoshop. And we're actually going to change that from bold back to regular. I'm going to click inside, I'm going to bring presents down to its own layer. We're going to center align this type, and I'm going to change this presents to ultralight, and then I'm going to open up the tracking. The tracking is the space between all of the letters in a word. So we're going to really spread the tracking out. So I'm just going to click and drag on this title for the tracking to pull the letters apart, and I'm going to shrink this down one more point, so from 9 to 8. Click OK to accept the changes, and move that a little bit closer towards the top. Now we're ready to add in our headline. I'm just going to copy this from our flyer document, our information document, Command C to copy, and select the type tool, click, Command V to paste. Now I need to change the options back, so I'm going to zero the tracking out. I'm going to change it from Helvetica New to a font called Xmooth. And now you can see all these letters are in uppercase. I don't want that. I still have the uppercase option selected here, so I'm going to click off of that. And I want to show you where you can actually find Xmooth for yourself. It's a free font that's available on Dafont.com. So let's jump over there real quick. If you go to Dafont.com, you'll see that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of fonts that are available. A lot of them for free. Some of them are free for personal use only. So make sure that you read the disclaimer over here on the right hand side. It'll let you know what you can use the fonts for. In order to find Xmooth, all you need to do is type in the name in the search box, and it'll pop right up for you. You can go ahead and download that, and you can use it on your computer. You can see that this font is available for free, so you can have at it for use in your designs, whether it's for personal or commercial use. Now we're going to go ahead and hide our browser. And continue working. Alright, now I have some more type to add. So this is the second half of the headline, April Dance. I'm going to Command C to copy, select the type tool, click and Command V to paste. Now I'm not going to leave both of these the same script font, so I'm going to change this bottom one to Helvetica. And what that's going to do is give us some typographic contrast so that it keeps the eye moving. It's a little bit more visually interesting. I'm going to set it to all caps, and I'm going to use a technique that it's called thin and thick. So you have one part of your headline thick or bold, and then you have another part of your headline that is thin. We can go ahead and get rid of that space, and we're going to make this larger. So I set it to about 40 points, and I'm just going to move this into place here. So these two fonts butted together offers nice typographic contrast, and it adds some class and interest to your flyer. Okay, so it's a nice technique. Try it in some of your flyer designs and see what you can come up with. We're going to keep adding to our flyer. So I'm going to add the tagline, Command C to copy. Come back over here, I'm going to paste it in. Select the entire thing. Change this font to Helvetica. We're going to Helvetica New, regular, and we're going to shrink that right on down. Like so, and then we're going to place it here. Just like so. I'm going to adjust my shape layer by hitting Command T on the keyboard after I selected that layer. And that's going to let me move that in closer to my headline. Now I'm ready to continue adding information to this flyer. So what we're going to do is where. We're going to add the where. Command C to copy. T on the keyboard. We're going to paste this in. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to make that the title of the bar where that's hosting this party larger. And we're going to use the thick thin effect again. We're going to make that thick. We're going to make this light. And then we can add a little bit more size to it. And then we can move this entire thing into place. And what we're going to do is we're going to align everything on the left edge to this, the left edge of the E here. I'm going to select my move tool, and I'm going to move my type right over to that edge there. Alright, so now we're going to continue adding in information. So I'm going to add this information here. Command C to copy. We're going to paste that in. I'm going to shrink this down. And we're going to add some bullets inside of our this information here. And the way you do that on a Mac is by holding down Option and then hitting the 8 key on the keyboard. That will automatically create a bullet point for you. I'm going to show you how to do that on Windows as well. So hang on just a moment and we'll jump over to Windows, and I'm going to show you how to add bullets to your documents inside of Photoshop. Okay, we're ready to keep moving now that I've showed you how to add those bullets to the same text inside of Photoshop on Windows. So let's continue editing our text. And what we're going to do is continue with the same thick and thin method. Like so. Select this information, line it to the right, move it over. Alright, we're ready to add our $500 dance contest information. Let's accept those changes there. We're going to click and add that in. Then we have something else we're going to add, our call to action, which is going to go right under the contest information. So we're going to copy that, paste that in. We'll move this over to the right as well. Let's go ahead and make this information bold, and we're going to make it larger. And we're going to add a layer effect to this information because we want it to stand out just a little bit more. It's a little bit it's further down on our document, so I do want to draw some type of attention to it. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to hit the effects button and we're going to add a drop shadow to that layer. I'm going to change the opacity to 100%. I'm going to change the size to 0. And what that's going to do is give us a nice hard edge on our drop shadow so that it's not fading out to transparent. And then I'm going to click OK. Now we have just a bit more information. We need to put the time and the date. So I'm going to copy the time and we're going to paste this information in. Paste. We'll leave that there. And the date, we're just going to copy here and we're going to paste that at the top. Now I'm going to change this around just a little bit. So I'm going to cut that out and paste the month and the day in front of the day. And I'm going to make this thin. And then we're going to align that to our right edge there. Okay, so now we're ready to change our color mode, flatten our image, and then get ready to send this to the printer. Now, depending on the requirements of your service provider, you can save your flyer document in a variety of formats. One way to save your file so that you don't lose the effects on your type or run into missing font errors is to flatten your image and then save it as a PSD. If you do save it as a PSD or a flattened image, you're going to lose your ability to edit your text, but your design will absolutely print properly. In order to avoid losing the ability to edit your text, I suggest saving 2 versions, one with the layers and one without. It never fails that as soon as you're done flattening your image, that's right when your client decides to call you and ask you, can you make one more change? So it's always a good idea to save at least 2 versions of your flyer, one with the layers intact and one that's flat that you're going to send to your printer. And I'm going to show you how to flatten your document. Okay? So what we're going to do is go to Image, Mode, and we're going to choose the CMYK color mode. Photoshop is going to say changing modes can affect the appearance of layers. Flatten image before mode change. In this case, we're going to say yes. We're going to go ahead and flatten this. And I'm going to turn off the ruler guides by going to View, Show, and then Guides. I'm going to turn those off. And now you can see that our image is flat. We won't run into any missing font problems or anything like that. And the mode, as you can see here, is set to CMYK. So we're ready to go ahead and send this to the printer. If your monitor is calibrated correctly, what you see on your screen should be a pretty good approximation of what you get when your file gets printed. Now there's another way to save your file as a PDF inside of Photoshop. What that's going to allow you to do is keep your vector-based output, because when you zoom in on this document, you can see that what we did was we rasterized our type or pixelated it, so that when you zoom in extremely close, you don't have that really crisp type that using a vector-based program like Illustrator or InDesign would afford you. So I'm going to show you a method of saving your files inside of Photoshop so that you can save that functionality or that feature. So we're just going to back up. We're going to go to edit, step backward, and you see our layers have reappeared. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the color mode, but this time we're going to select don't flatten. Now what we're going to do is go to File, Save As, and we're going to choose the Photoshop PDF option. I'm going to name this file as Test PDF. I'm going to deselect the Layers option, and it's going to tell me that the file must be saved as a copy with this selection. That's fine. And I do want to embed the color profile, which is US Web Coded SWOP, which is a very good color profile, but once again you're going to need to check with your own personal print service provider to make sure that that's compatible with the system that they have. And then go ahead and click Save. The settings you choose in the Save Adobe PDF dialog can override your current settings in the Save As dialog box. That's okay. Inside, we can go ahead and turn off the preserved Photoshop editing capabilities because we're going to save a version as a PSD that does still have all the layers and everything intact. So we don't want to run any problems with our PDF, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. For the compression setting, make sure Do Not Downsample is set. And for the output, set the color conversion to Convert to Destination, which is the working CMYK or the US Web Coded SWOP. We're all set for changing settings inside of here. Go ahead and click Save PDF. And you can see that Photoshop is grinding away, making that PDF for us. Now, the other option would be to import this graphic into InDesign or Illustrator or Quark Express and use the PDF export options from there. All of those programs have much more robust options for editing PDFs than Photoshop does. But if you're in a crunch and you don't have either any of those programs, or you're working exclusively inside of Photoshop, this is a very good option. And what we're going to do is zoom in, and as you can see, as we keep zooming in, our type still has those nice crisp edges. So I can keep zooming in as close as I want to my type, and you see that I'm not losing any quality on those edges. You see that? So this is a great way to save your and not lose the vector-based options that saving a PDF will afford you. Okay? So once you have saved your file, you're now ready to send it to the printer. And that's a wrap. I hope this tutorial has been enlightening and informative. Always remember that in order for your Photoshop design skills to grow, you need to apply the techniques that I've shown you in your own projects and then experiment to really make it your own. Until next time, this is Keith Young and Desktop Publishing's Secrets Revealed. Take care. If you're looking for top-notch tutorials using the most cutting-edge desktop publishing and design software, be sure to check out our library of video tutorials at desktoppublishingsecretsrevealed.com.